Surveillance capitalism. Surveillance capitalism is this idea developed by Shoshanna Zuboff, academic from Harvard and other institutions, who wrote this book, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, The Fight for Human Future and the New Frontier of Power, published in 2019, which essentially describes the system of capitalism that we're living now in the age of data surveillance. And it's just a phenomenal and very clear and sober understanding and explanation of how our systems of search and web search and social media and applications are using our data, and the ethical and moral problems, as well as economic and social problems that these are creating. Some of our ideas also in this paper from 2015, Big Other, Surveillance Capitalism and the Prospects of an Information Civilization. This paper and these books have been cited by thousands of people. It's been kind of talked about everywhere, and I think it's very important for us to discuss nowadays. In that paper, she defines surveillance capitalism as a new logic of accumulation of capitalism characterized by the use of big data and analytics to predict and modify human behavior as a means to produce revenue and market control, all of which are supported by specific ideologies and institutional frameworks that our societies have either enabled willingly or not. What I'm going to do here is actually going to review some of these ideas, quotes from a shorter piece that I'm guiding you to read from the New York Times in 2020. You are now remotely controlled, where she essentially lays out very succinctly the problem here. So we have to understand that first, internet infrastructure are owned and operated by private surveillance capital and governed by its iron laws, as we may have examined when we're talking about data privacy laws and other kinds of laws in the United States and also elsewhere, actually, how much short they come to actually control how companies surveil. And this is a term might seem a little weird, but I think it's a technical term in a way, and it's literally what they're doing to keep the data of people's actions and save the data and use it and analyze it as they wish. And that's kind of beginning of the problem here. Privacy policies are actually surveillance policies. So what they call privacy policies is an euphemism for surveillance policies. In other words, it's not how they protect your privacy, it's how they can use your data in however ways they want it. The most treacherous hallucination of them all is the belief that privacy is private. That's the idea that everybody can just decide how much private or how much privacy they want, which is, of course, in practice, not how it works. Privacy, it needs to be determined by laws, which are created by the public. So the privacy is something that the public determines how private we're going to be. And we have determined that in a public way that nothing is really that private, because at least the institutions, they have all your data and they can use it in very freely. We are in a period of great division of learning. So in addition to division of labor, we also, of course, have had historically division of labor in terms of high class, low class, the rich and the poor, the capitalists and the laborers themselves. But also we're in a division of learning, and which is an epistemic inequality. So it's not just information inequality or inequality of access to resources. It's a whole epistemic inequality, meaning inequality of how much people learn and know. There's an inequality of knowledge and the resources to acquire knowledge itself. Quote, they want your car, your medical conditions, the shows you stream, your location, as well as all the streets and buildings in your path and all the behavior of all the people in your city. That's what they're trying to collect. That's what they're collecting. Quote, by monitoring posts, pictures, interactions, and internet activity in real time, the executives wrote, referring to Facebook executives, Facebook can work out when young people feel stressed, defeated, overwhelmed, anxious, nervous, stupid, silly, useless, and a failure. These are actual categories that they developed and they can reliably assess. This depth of information, they explained, allows Facebook to pinpoint the time frame during which a young person needs a confidence boost and it's most vulnerable to specific configuration of subliminal cues and triggers. So if you watch that documentary, The Social Dilemma, if you thought that was an exaggeration, no, it's unfortunately it's not. That's actually kind of how it works. Although, of course, a lot of this is done by the computer algorithms themselves. The companies put out the rules for the computers to operate, and then the computers are the ones operating them. But of course, we are the ones who create the rules. We think about these categories, we study them, we assess them, and the companies, the companies, the people then apply them. Google, quote, Google created the first insanely lucrative markets to trade in human futures. I thought that was very clever use of words. So when we were talking about, oil futures, gold futures, what wheat price futures. Now we're also just trading in human futures in a way, what we now know as online targeted advertising, so also euphemism, based on their predictions of which ads users would click. And of course, this is shared all around. That's the business use case of Facebook sharing human features. They know what kinds of things you're going to click on, and then they sell that to other advertisers, and Google does the same. And we're really not really getting that much for it. I mean, surveillance capital does not appear to drive innovation either. So a promising new era of economic research shows the critical role that government and democratic governance have played in innovation, and suggests a lack of innovation in big tech companies like Google. I mean, how has Google innovated in the past, 10 years? Think about it. What have they done that's new and different and awesome? Not much, in my view, but I'm going to point you to this article and some other ideas on surveillance capitalism by Shoshanna Zuboff, so we can kind of understand what's going on here and then be able to assess the ethics of these behaviors and these systems. That's it for this one. See you next time.